justice.
If growth isn't paying for growth, and city fire crews can't fill the stations by themselves, teaming up may be the next best option. A look at what consolidation means for taxpayers in two major Idaho cities. Who's footing the bill for the upcoming election? We'll take a look at how much money candidates have raised ahead of November and what historically happens to the person with the deepest pocketbook. Today, we remember a major milestone in human history, the first human to walk on the moon. But it doesn't stop there. How a piece of Idaho landscape prepared astronauts for the future lunar walks. Across Idaho, fire departments are asking the same question. Can small agencies keep up with explosive growth? Well, across the state, there's a growing number of agencies deciding the only way they can keep up with growth may be just working as one unit. Like over in Blaine County, where fire agencies announced they plan to formally merge. Blaine County South Fire Protection District and the Ketchum Fire Department are set for consolidation later this year. And the Haley Fire Department could also be a part of that merge if voters decide to say yes on the ballot in November. This would mean all three would become one department, and they have said they're doing it to ensure people in Blaine County receive the same level of fire and emergency medical services that you would get in larger communities. It allows for better staffing options, faster responses across jurisdiction lines, eliminates duplicate administration, and that's almost identical to the reasoning from what we've seen up north. Two fire districts there merged, becoming the Silver Valley Fire Rescue, after already working together through a joint operations agreement. And state lawmakers made the process of merging easier last year. Before 2025, combining fire districts could cause problems with a state rule that limits how much district budgets can grow each year. Now the new law removes those financial penalties and helps workers keep their seniority rights when districts merge, keeping a firefighter's place in line based on how long they've worked there, which decides things like pay and shift choices. And the reasons we are seeing it in Wood River and Silver Valley mirrors what we're seeing now with Kuna and Nampa Fire. But it also brings up the question, if new developments are popping up all across Idaho and the population is booming in these places, why aren't fire departments getting enough money to run their own operation? Well, Cooper Morgan explains.
A field of wheat and a backdrop of cookie-cutter homes. A sight you'll see more and more in Kuna, and one that Chief T.J. Lawrence has dealt with since he started back in 2001.
And again, I'll go back to when I started, there was just two of us.
Since then, the fields just keep filling in.
As more people come in, the demand just begins to increase. It doesn't change necessarily the nature of calls, but just the simultaneous nature of a back-to-back call, 3 calls at once.
Kuna's second fire station opens this fall, but it isn't coming with a whole new crew. The district only has 6 firefighters daily, and they'll have to split them between the 2 stations.
So the more firefighters you have on scene initially, and then showing up throughout the duration of the event is critical. 3 firefighters is not going to put out a well-seated fire.
So with more and more buildings going up, shouldn't the number of staffed firefighters go up too? Why can't that growth pay for more firefighters? It's because Kuna Rural Fire says they're funded mostly by property taxes.
Well, impact fees are a one-time fee that's applied to residential and commercial growth.
The problem with that is impact fees are one-time payments, while firefighter salaries are ongoing.
You can apply that to capital needs based on growth. So another station, another piece of apparatus, a fire truck, we can use it there, but we can't hire people with impact fees.
And you'd only be able to hire those employees for a short period of time. If growth stopped, you'd have to fire everybody and start over.
In other words, impact fees buy buildings and trucks, not the firefighters to staff them. Longtime Mayor Joe Steer says even if heavy hitters, Meta, are making a home in Kuna,
no, we don't give breaks to anybody.
He says the city made a deal with Meta to cover a funding shortfall for police services as part of the move-in.
We were able to get Meta to agree to pay what that gap was over a 21-year period. So they actually paid more than they had to.
But Kuna Rural Fire District didn't make an agreement like that. they'll collect $531 per 1,000 square foot of industrial commercial space when places like Meta do move in.
It's just something that we know impact fees have a limited use.
That's part of why Kuna is studying a possible consolidation with Nampa Fire, combining departments into one district. By consolidating, the two districts would become one, with one tax levy. That would give the new district more room under Idaho's tax cap to raise revenue for fire services, giving them the ability to hire more men and be more efficient where they can, unlike what they can do with the impact fees. If it's approved, Kuna homeowners would pay about $20 more a year per $100,000 of taxable value, and Nampa residents would see a slight decrease. Nothing is decided yet, but Kuna leaders say they're looking for ways to keep more stations staffed.
The ability to staff our second station consistently, constantly.
Because protecting Kuna and the community is what counts.
It's not about zip codes. It's about people in need.
The two fire districts are still studying the proposed consolidation. Both fire boards would have to approve the plan before it could move forward. If they do, the consolidation would then go to voters for a final decision. A town hall meeting will be taking place tonight at the Nampa Fire Training Center from 6 to 8 p.m.
Yeah, so if you have your questions, that's the time to ask. I've seen a lot of people post on social media, especially as of late, just kind of, hey, what's going on? We have Meta, right? The big building that came in, so why aren't they paying for that? But yeah, simply put, it sounds like they are building a new station then.
They are building a new station. Now, that is actually the result of a bond that they passed a couple of years back. So that's not actually these impact fee funds, but these impact fee funds help pay for one-time payments like a new fire engine. They can't pay for continuous stuff like staffing because, you got to pay somebody every day of the week. And that just doesn't work out with those impact fees.
So that's why you're seeing growth and also empty fire stations at the same time.
Exactly.
All right, Cooper, thank you. We are less than 106 days away from Election Day. Campaigns are about to shift into high gear, but first, they are fueling up with donations. Who has the most gas heading into the final 3 months? Well, let's ask Justin Core. Justin, first off, how important is money in campaigns?
Well, Hunter, Mark Hanna, who was President McKinley's fundraiser, once said there are two things that are important in politics. The first is money, and I can't remember what the second one is. So he would tell you money is the thing, but raising more money does not guarantee you an election win. Let's start with this campaign year. And the most important elected position in our state, it would be governor. According to the Secretary of State, the incumbent, Governor Brad Little, has raised far much more money than his opponents. He secured $2.1 million for his war chest so far. Next highest fundraiser is the unaffiliated former Idaho Supreme Court Justice John Stegner. He's at more than $400,000. A lot of money, but less than 1/5 of what the governor has. Meanwhile, the Democrat in this race, Terry Pickens, is sitting at $157,000. Again, a lot of money, but a fraction of the governor's contributions. Now, if you're like, Justin, that's nice, but as little faith as I might have in modern politics, you still cannot just outright buy an election. And I'd say, even though I really want to be snarky here, you're actually right. Let's go back to the past few Idaho gubernatorial elections and look at the top fundraisers. This is from the National Institute on Money and State Politics. Back in 2022, the incumbent, Brad Little, may have heard of him, outraised his next closest fundraiser, Ammon Bundy, $2.3 million to $808,000. Little won the election handily. The next two closest both lost in the Republican primary. This went as expected. The most money won. But look at 2018's race for Idaho governor. Tommy Ahlquist raised the most money, $4.6 million. Again, that's according to the National Institute on Money and State Politics. That didn't even get him out of the primary. Brad Little did raise the second most, more than $3.3 million, which got him the win. In third for fundraising was A.J. Belukoff, who didn't make it out of his primary with almost $2.5 million raised. Paulette Jordan raised more than $1.2 million. She lost in the general. More than $13 million was raised in this race for governor in 2018 across all candidates. Bonkers. This year will not come close to this. And if you're like, well, that was the exception, it's not like the top fundraiser ever lost before. If you're thinking that, you don't know ball. Literally, the governor's race just 4 years prior in 2014, the leading fundraiser also lost. It was A.J. Belukoff, raising more than $4.1 million. 1.5 million more than his nearest competitor. Lost. Incumbent Governor Butch Otter raised almost $2.5 million to win this thing. So all of this is to say, yes, Hannah was right that you do need money to win an election. You just don't need the most money, and it's not all that you need. Hunter?
Holy guacamole. That amount of money is so incredible to me. $4 million too on that one.
Yeah, I know. Just to lose an election, just to have that money lying around.
And then when you lose in the primaries too, oof, ouch.
I know.
It
Rough.
hurts. Okay, on the serious note, money. Where's all this money being spent?
Right. You have all this money. What are you spending on? Mostly it's for ads. Ads in newspapers, ads online, and most effectively, television.
Just kidding. But we're seeing more on social media too.
Yes,
I've been seeing that more actually.
Absolutely. And again, you have all this money coming in, these millions of dollars. Yeah, it's mostly just ads, getting your name and face out there.
It's impressive. All right. Thanks for the breakdown. That was helpful. It was a major moment in human history. The first human on the moon. Happened nearly 60 years ago, but it didn't end there. A look at how a national monument, right here in Idaho, prepared astronauts for their own missions to the moon. Now to a mission of your own. Text us, 208-321-5614. We want your comments, thoughts, and questions, and we'll share them at the end of the show.
One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
On this day in history, July 20th, 1969, man walked on the moon for the first time. Neil Armstrong spoke to the world from the surface of the moon. Now, today is celebrated as National Moon Day every single year. Since then, NASA has sent several crews to the moon. The Apollo mission brought 12 people to its surface. But did you know Idaho's landscape trained Apollo astronauts for their future missions to the moon? Well, Craters of the Moon National Monument was formed by lava flows thousands of years ago. In 1969, 14 astronauts explored the lava landscape and learned the basics of volcanic geology, all in preparation for future trips to the moon. Because so much of the moon's surface is covered in volcanic materials, NASA saw this as an opportunity for those astronauts to become educated before blasting off into space. After their mission, they said their time at Craters of the Moon very well prepared them for their missions to the moon. Now to the 4-in-1. There are several wildfires burning here in Idaho, including the Ohio fire. We now know a person or people started it over the weekend. Evacuation orders are still in place near Haley as crews work to contain it. NIPSI says the Ohio fire has now burned 2,000 acres in Blaine County and is now 10% contained. Canyon County has confirmed its first positive mosquito test for West Nile virus this season. The infected mosquitoes were collected northwest of Caldwell last week. Officials say the area has already been treated and mosquito control efforts are now being increased. Now, to help reduce your risk, officials urge people to drain or treat standing water around their homes. And it seems like we're seeing this weekly at this point, but another Idaho angler has reeled in a new state record. This time, it's Timothy Hicks from Post Falls, landing a 49 3/4 inch northern pike on Lake Ponderay, setting a new state catch and release record. The fish was just 3/4 of an inch longer than the previous record holder, and that's the fourth one on the 208. Well, like I mentioned, it's almost every week that someone is getting a new record for the size of the fish that they're catching. But that's what summer's all about, right? It's a time to test the waters for anglers. And nearly 25 years ago, one man's trip to the pond at Park Center really paid off. Here's John Miller in this 208 redial.
It was about close to 15 minutes. I was just praying my line didn't break. So I would just let it tire itself out, reel it in, and there it goes again. I was just happy I caught it.
Now the news is spreading at Park Center Pond. A guy caught a 22-pound catfish in here.
You're kidding me.
Ooh, big.
That's big enough to eat your boat.
Yeah, eat my boat.
I've heard the story.
Sean Breslin knows it well. 3 feet long and 22 pounds, give or take.
Yeah, you could water ski behind that.
He's already named it.
Big Daddy.
Big Daddy.
Yeah, you after your own Big Daddy?
I'd be happy with a little trout or something.
Yeah. Sean, knowing rumors of giant sturgeon swirled in these murky waters.
Oh, you never know. You pull out a flounder or something.
Yeah, or a boot or a shopping cart maybe. As it stands, Big Daddy is bigger than any fish Troy Benham's ever caught.
Dreamt about catching big fish, but finally got one.
Tell us about your dream out here. Like if you had a dream.
I think it involves some supermodel coming by.
Yeah. Nothing to do with fishing, huh?
Well, not really.
For now, those who dare test these waters are left to wait and wonder.
Any advice on bait or anything?
A white marshmallow and a worm.
A worm and a marshmallow. The best catfish bait in the world is to leave a package of hot dogs in the back of your car for a week.
Really?
And then come out and put those on a treble hook.
I'll have to try that. You might try that next time you go after
Big Daddy.
John Miller, Idaho's News Channel 7.
awful as that wildfire smoke is to breathe, it does give us some pretty dramatic sunsets and sunrises, and I think we'll see another kind of dramatic orange sunset today in the Treasure Valley as we have plenty of smoke in the air still and heat. Look at Boise at 103 degrees right now. That combined with the haze and the smoke may have you just hunkering down indoors for the rest of our evening. We're knocking on the door of 100 in Twin Falls, up near 90 in McCall. Beautiful day in Sun Valley, blue skies and 91 degrees. So air quality has fluctuated a bit today. We've landed in the red or unhealthy for all category west of Boise a couple times today. The outlook for tomorrow, for Tuesday in the Boise area, is that we'll likely hover in that orange or unhealthy for sensitive groups category, but I wouldn't be surprised throughout the day to see us moving into the yellow and maybe the red. Again, it just kind of depends on fire behavior, intensity of winds at the surface, and exactly what we start seeing overhead and at the surface. As all of that combines, that really will determine how much smoke we see. It's a little tough to predict, but I do think we'll see temperatures back off a little bit tomorrow, more like mid to upper 90s instead of low triple digits. We'll have some clouds overhead, and clouds in the morning means we'll start off really warm. We'll barely dip to maybe the mid 70s early on tomorrow. Influx of moisture still rolling in around this ridge of high pressure. We're seeing a couple of isolated showers in northern Nevada and far south central Idaho today. We'll see those storm and rain chances increase Tuesday, Wednesday in the Treasure Valley. Nothing to write home about here, but it's possible tomorrow morning we could have a sprinkle of rain, maybe an isolated shower in the valleys on thunderstorm on Wednesday. Wednesday is really the day we're watching for the mountains, though. Storm chances much more widespread, and with a saturated atmosphere in place from McCall eastward through Stanley over into the central mountains, we're watching the possibility of some flash flooding as slow-moving storms could drop a lot of rain in a short amount of time. So Wednesday, the day to watch there. Tomorrow, I just think it's heat and smoke that remain our big headlines. Waking up tomorrow, these are our overnight lows. Again, only 72 in Boise. Will warm to the upper 90s, right around the triple digits. Without the cool down overnight, our air conditioners don't get much of a break. So that's part of what increases that heat risk with hot days like this. Wednesday will be our coolest day of the work week, down to 97 degrees. But as that moisture moves out, storm chances decrease Thursday. We're right back to triple digits to wrap up the work week. And we stay hot and sunny for the final weekend of July. It is 5:22. Quick check of traffic conditions shows things are almost at a standstill at that Flying Y merge point as everyone coming from downtown Boise is trying to hop on I-84. So things are very slow there. Looking at our traffic flow, it stays slow off and on westbound I-84 through Meridian on out into Nampa. Still only about a 30 to 35 minute drive from the Flying Y out to Caldwell. So all things considered, not bad, but still anticipated to be a little bit slow as you're hitting the road on this Monday afternoon.
All right, before we get to your comments, here's a quick update on the 208 Way, our monthly giving campaign. So far, you have raised $6,519 for Honor Flight Boise. It also includes the $2,500 match from the Idaho Community Foundation. Honor Flight Boise is raising money to send veterans to our nation's capital for a tour through the monuments dedicated in their honor. The trip is this October. If you want to help out, be sure to scan the QR code on your screen. You'll get a link to where you can donate. All right, let's take a look at some of your comments. We have Bob who says, just wondering about campaign donations. Where is most of the money coming from? Is it out of state? Similarly, we have how much of Little's war chest comes from out of state. We have it right here. If we're specifically looking at Little, we're talking about 1.5 million that stays in state. Out of state is 500,000. So there's that answer. All right, next question. So what happens to all the money from the candidate that lost? I'm sure they could not spend all of it. Well, if they plan to run again, they can use it for another campaign, but they cannot use it for personal use. They can donate it as well. They can go to other charities or to their official party, etc. But yeah, it'd be nice if you could keep it to yourself. That's millions of dollars. I'd have a shopping trip. Okay, and finally, Susan L. reciprocating that message, saying, I've decided to run for an office. Please send money via KTVB. Thanks in advance, Susan L. in Meridian. And yeah, it'd be nice to have that kind of cash flow. I like that headspace.